Hello everyone, welcome to my Evil Within 2, Akumu difficulty, no upgrades, no keys walkthrough, and this is chapter 15, The End of This World. So, now that we've killed Stefano and Theodore, Myra has effectively assumed most of the control in Union, and that is why Union looks the way it does, and that's why you're seeing these new versions of the Lost, which are called Albedo, because of course they're all white, this and that. And I like the atmosphere of this whole entire area. It's kind of like the calm after the storm, where after just all the insane things that we have done throughout this whole entire game, it's like we've entered the eye of the storm, essentially, and that's why everything feels so silent, in my opinion. Like, I just love it so much. And this is really the first survival horror game for me where I really feel like I've entered a calm after the storm. And whoever came up with this idea for an environment in this game is a genius. Because, as I mentioned before, it's just something that not a lot of survival horror games do, especially near the end of the game. You know, normally in games, there's always a sense of escalation as the games progress. But this one, it's taking a different approach. You know, we've just done the most insane thing ever with helping Sebastian conquer his fears of STEM and taking out Theodore. And now Myra has assumed most of the control here, and it's just caused Union to feel dead. You know, it's incredible. And the fact that I'm feeling this kind of feeling right now, when I'm going through this environment, is just such a cool experience for me. And then with the music playing right now, which is titled Remains of Union, is one of my favorite songs from this game because it really captures that dead feeling to Union, and it just captures that calm after the storm perfectly. So overall, this is one of my favorite parts of the game from an atmospheric perspective. But gameplay-wise, I'm just a little disappointed. You know, I was expecting a little bit more from the enemies, but we're just fighting the Lost again, and the encounters are very simple, and then we have a boss fight coming up against the Effigy, and the Effigy is very simple. I mean, I don't care that it's simplistically designed, because it goes down very quickly, and the best weapon to use against the Effigy is the sawn-off shotgun, because it's the most powerful weapon to use against the Effigy, and it's best to use that weapon because you're not going to be able to use that weapon very well against the final boss fight with Myra, because Myra's boss fight forces you to use a lot of long-range weaponry, and the shotgun just isn't going to help you out, unfortunately. But you have more than enough weaponry to deal with Myra, and Myra is definitely the hardest boss in this game. I mean, in a game that has some pretty easy bosses, Myra is the hardest out of the easy bosses. And the main issue I have with Myra is just how difficult it is for me to hit the weak spots. And thankfully, on the recording that I got for the final boss fight, I didn't struggle so much with aiming for the weak spots, because I was actually taking my time, and I was standing in positions that were very helpful in allowing me to hit the weak spots. And as I've been discussing the final boss fight, I've just done this section right here, which you can easily do with just the freeze bolt and the explosive bolts as well. And you have to freeze the albedos so that they will always be killed by the explosive bolts. That's just one of the unique characteristics associated with this enemy. Also, the albedos will not be stunned by the shock bolts. They will not get knocked down to the ground. They will instead just go into a stun animation, but not actually lie down on the ground, so you can't stomp them. And you can use the harpoon bolts against them, like just aim for their center mass and just knock them over and then stomp them. But with the strategies that I've shown, you don't really need to do that. And the freeze bolts, I definitely recommend you save like a freeze bolt or an explosive bolt because they can be very handy against the spiders that Myra spawns in her boss fight. But that's all I really need to say about Myra's boss fight until I actually get to the next video, which showcases the boss fight. Right now, we're about to encounter the Effigy boss fight. And when the boss fight starts, the Effigy is always going to run towards you. And it's not going to change direction while it's running, so it's a perfectly straight path that it takes. But I always make sure I get rid of this fence, because this fence can get in the way a lot of the times when I'm trying to do the loop against this guy. And after he finishes his charge, he's always going to do this AoE, which has a lot of range. And there's no telling what he's going to do next. He's either going to do the close range attack, or he's going to do the AoE again. Those are the only two moves he's able to do when you're just at such a close range. And after he does one of the moves, he's always going to jump backwards unless you make him flinch. So this is what I always do. I bait out this move, and it opens him up to being hit very easily. But because I made him flinch, he's not going to jump backwards. He's going to always do an attack after he does the flinch animation. So now that's done, he's going to do the loop that I need. Once again, always make sure you're running to the left. Just be careful not to get too close to the Effigy. Do you see that protrusion on the left side? Or, like, on my left, but on the boss's right-hand side? I believe that protrusion from the body is actually part of the hitbox of that attack. So you need to be very careful of that protrusion. That's why you gotta make sure that while you're moving to the left, you're kind of moving away from the boss at the same time. And try your best to make sure that you're not draining your stamina too quickly. But when the boss gets knocked down like this, you're free to pump in some additional shots, but be careful. He's going to always do the running attack after he gets flinched like that. So run to the left, and then re-engage the loop. It takes roughly 13 to 16 shots from your shotgun in order to kill this guy, but you always want to use the sawn-off, because the double-barreled shotgun, even though the game says that it does twice the amount of damage, it really doesn't feel like it. It does less damage than the sawn-off. And of course, the long-barrel shotgun is horrendous. It does almost no damage to the enemies, and the stun on it is not very good, so obviously the sawn-off is the best option to use against this guy. I wonder what would happen if I were to use the flamethrower against this guy, because there's really not a lot of utilities for the flamethrower on this game, and I know I said before that the flamethrower is pretty helpful against the spiders that Myra spawns, but I had a lot of moments during the boss fight where I would accidentally set myself on fire when I was using the flamethrower, because if you aim the flamethrower too close to the ground near where you are, you'll accidentally set yourself on fire. And I was making that mistake a lot, so I had to really make sure I wasn't getting too close to the enemies while I was busy using the flamethrower. And because of that aspect to the flamethrower, I had to use an explosive bolt to get rid of most of the enemies. That way I was free to use the flamethrower at a longer range and not run the risk of any spider jumping towards me and just damaging me. So if you keep that in mind, the spiders are not going to be a problem whatsoever. But that is the end of that boss fight, so go ahead and take the time to scour the area for supplies, and then when you get over to where Myra is, that will conclude the chapter. So stay tuned for the next part where I do chapters 16 and 17, which will be the finale of this entire walkthrough. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.